Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to another episode of the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Joining you as per is myself, Ewan and Alan. We do hope you're all good and dandy on this fine Monday afternoon as we are recording. As always, we're going to go through the events that took place at Tynecastle at the weekend where we gathered another 3 points to slowly climb up the Premier League table, or the Premiership table, I should say, over a 5 goal thriller against Kilmarnock. So we'll delve into a bit of the details about that. Also, we will go a bit again into the transfer market as the window is nearly shut. I believe it is now a week before it closes, with it being the 3rd of February, if the same rules apply as it does down in England. And lastly, as well, we will dive ahead into the next game as such when we face Dundee away from home at Dens Park. So that is going to be your jam-packed filled podcast for whatever time you're watching it, as I said. And then, as always, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet to the Since I Was Young podcast via our YouTube or our Spotify as well, please check those out and to give us a wee subscription. It would be really appreciated. And if anybody didn't know, it's absolutely free. Absolutely free. I don't know it like anybody else mentioned it these days, but absolutely free. So you're getting an absolute bargain. And if you want to check out any of the socials as well, all in the description, all the usual suspects. So please feel free to check those out and comment on anything that you like or rather don't like. So, Alan, let's get dive in straight to the action that was from the weekend. Obviously, there were quite a few talking points, as always, with the starting 11 as per. And as we got into the game as well, an injury quite early on, should I say. And I guess it's a good talk to start as of any. So obviously, after about maybe 10 or 15 minutes, Halkett had to go off due to his hamstring feeling quite tight. And then in turn as well, he was replaced by our unwanted centre back in Lewis Nielsen, which I thought like throughout the whole game he was quite stable in the back line. But it's an interesting topic to start off with. Obviously with Halkett and his rare cutting injuries as well, we can delve a bit into about that in terms of does he really have a future at heart, and also for Lewis Nielsen as well, because I think you and me have got slightly different opinions on that. But in turn, we can start with a bit of a positive. How did you think the young centre back actually did for almost a full game?
I don't think he was too bad. I think you could tell quite early when he came on that he was a bit shaky, and I think obviously he's been brought back from his loan with St Johnstone, that he was out on the first half of the season. I didn't initially know why Critchley brought him back, or the club chose to bring him back, because I thought, he was playing a little bit at St Johnstone, and I thought maybe there was maybe more of a benefit of him staying there. But he's obviously been brought back in because Critchley wanted to have a look at him and assess him in training, etc., to see what he could do. Which I don't disagree with. I think that's fair enough. But yeah, I struggle to see where Lewis Nielsen fits at this. Well, I say at this moment, if the Halkett injury is bad, which hopefully it isn't, and there hasn't really been any updates on it up to now. But if it's a bad one, then Lewis being back at the club is maybe not such a bad thing. The only thing that kind of worried me in the context of the game was the fact he was next to Forrester, who obviously that's two young defenders coming up against a Kilmarnock side that are quite direct and quite physical. So that was the one point that I was a little bit worried about. But as far as Lewis Nielsen goes, I don't think he's the worst defender. I don't think he's fantastic, but I think he's far from the worst.
I mean, but do you not think, in that sense, just the kind of counting up? Because obviously, I know that throughout the past conversations that we have in terms of young players coming through, trying to break into the first team, I know that we kind of differ on the point where, if one gets loaned out, and I'm going to use Harry Stone as the prime example, where I think he should have been brought into the first team. Well, now I guess, like I've never seen the point maybe up until about maybe 12 months ago where he had been loaned out about three times and he's still not like I'm trying to break into that first team. Yeah, you take it into the context about Gordon and then Xander, but at the same time, you know, with Nielsen as well, I don't know why I've got a wee bit more like I wouldn't go as far to say that he's going to be the next I don't know was it at the Paolo Maldini, but at the same time, you know he's got a bit more stature about him. He if you look at him,
Yeah,
even just from that, you know any striker that's going to go up against them, they'll have that in in the back of their mind. We're thinking, all right, okay, I may have to work extra hard here, but you know, my main point is that I don't think he's had the real opportunity to maybe show what he can do, and I think maybe the fact that he might have looked a bit shaky to start with, which I do agree with you at that point, is that for any young player that starts to come through into the first team. It's all about a a bit of consistency and trying to improve game on game on game because we obviously know that a young star is not going to be consistent throughout the whole season. I mean, to argue that any was it squad player won't have a consistent season, but
yeah.
I think it's experience to build upon game by game by game. So I didn't actually. I thought it was quite a good thing that we brought back Nielsen because I think this will probably be his last year to maybe show what he can do given the circumstances with Kent out, rolls away, Halkett. Obviously, we don't know yet, but with Steined the welder in as well, I think it's a good opportunity to maybe try and fight for a place in that at the back line.
No, I wouldn't disagree. I think he's a good option to have at the moment, and I think with obviously the Oyegoki situation that may well be resolved when this episode goes live or not, but it looks as if he's on his way to Italy. So that gives us one less defender. So if Lewis can come in and fill that, it's not a bad thing. And I think people forget as well, and maybe I kind of am a bit guilty of this, that he's only 21. It feels like he's older than that because he's been around for quite some time, but he is only 21, and you're sort of looking at him going, I really want there to be something to
Hmm.
Lewis Nielsen because you know having that. And I had this conversation with someone about another position that we'd spoken about before, but having the Jamestown analytics and obviously all the squad turnaround that we're going to see, you do need to remember that we do have to have homegrown players and we do have to have some level of domestic, Scottish players. And I'm not even just saying that as players that get what the club's about or get what the club means, but I think, we'd be very, very harsh to move him on straight away. But he's contracted till 2026, so the end of next season. I just looked it up while you were talking there. So I do think if there's a move for him in the summer, it could happen. But I think keeping him until then is a perfectly sensible thing. And I know obviously we had to bring him off the bench because Halkett was injured and we didn't have any other centre backs on there. So that kind of ties him to either staying at Hearts or going back to St Johnstone. That's the only two options he has. And it might well be up to the player. Critchley might say, look, we're going to go back into the market and get another defender. We'll send you back to St Johnstone if you want to go there. It'll depend on that. But it was something I was actually going to speak to you about at some point during this, was obviously with the Oyegoki sale likely to happen. Do you feel comfortable with the number of centre backs that we have, considering Kent's injured, Kingsley's injured, and Halkett's out at the moment as well. Obviously, we don't know the Halkett situation, but you're looking at realistically Jamie McCart, Michael Steinvender, and Lewis Nielsen being the three fit centre backs that we've currently got, unless I've missed anybody. But I think that is the three that I kind of thought of in my head.
Well, I wouldn't say that I feel comfortable, but at the same time, obviously, um, McCart has gotten off to a good start as well. Obviously, we will talk about his goal in due course. Um, Obviously, we've just talked about Nielsen as well, and you know, like you know, he's obviously still got a lot to actually learn. But I think with a relatively stable back line, with because obviously the Carter's got a lot of experience there. Penrice is starting to build himself up to be the left back he wants to actually be, and the left back we know he can be. Obviously, if you've got either Gordon or Xander there, but you've got two very comfortable keepers there. Obviously, the right back situation is a bit of a kind of an up and there thing because obviously, as you mentioned, and what we will talk about with Oyegoki possibly leaving, and then you've got young Forrester as well. And taking into account Stein, was it Wilder? Just on the name alone, I would be very comfortable. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to go back into the market to get another centre back. I don't, because you have to remember, we've got two centre backs out. I think, if I'm right in saying, I think Kingsley is a bit more of a long term one, and Ken, I think he has been training. I don't know how much, but I don't know how far away he would be from coming back. But unless we're planning to play like a back five, then I'm not. I wouldn't be too concerned. I mean, because the fact that we've already brought in four players, like in one of them, like being a defender, like more specifically a centre back. I don't. I think there's other players that can maybe slot in to that role if they absolutely had to. So,
Yeah.
in my personal opinion, I don't think we need to be too concerned about that. Yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I get you. I think the bigger sort of concern that I have, and the reason that I could see us getting another one in, is because obviously Oyegoki is not only a right back, he's also been a centre back. So him going kind of takes that option away. So it could be something, but I don't think they will. Honestly, I don't think they will unless it's like a short term loan kind of thing. But yeah, obviously it's all kind of conjuncture till we know the Halkett situation. But him
Yeah.
going off with the injury, obviously we scored. To get back to the game a little bit, we
Mm.
scored a goal before Halkett went off with his injury. Um,
Worst fucking
Critchley
goal as
did
well.
a brilliant goal. What are you talking
Nobody wanted it.
about?
Nobody wanted it. Like between Wilson and Grant, it was like, no, 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 mate, you take it. No, 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 you take it. No.
I see. I watched it. I watched it again, and I think Grant absolutely fluffs the volley, and it fortunately finds its way to Wilson. But I thought initially, when I first saw it, I
Fortunately.
thought Wilson was having a shot. I do think Wilson was having a shot, but then when I watched it again, just kind of before we came on, he does look up and see where Kabangu is. Yes, he maybe slices his pass a little bit or he's shot a little bit, but
A little
he
bit.
does look up. He does look up to see where Kabangu is when Wilson has the ball. Like Grant is an absolute fluffed volley. There's no chance that was meant at all. But I'm going to give Wilson a little bit of credit because yeah, he's maybe gone for a shot, but I think he's also aware that Kabangu is in the box if it was to rebound or whatever. I don't think he meant for it to go straight to him, put it that way.
Mm.
But this is like what I was talking about with Kabangu before, and like what I've spoken about him in previous episodes. Having a forward that is a penalty box merchant is something that is massive. And I
Oh
think,
yeah.
Critchley is always talking about getting balls in the box, getting balls in the box, and having people in the box to finish them. And I think that, albeit fortunate, it was kind of the goal that we've been missing a lot this season. Like the ball's been getting in and there's been nobody there. and the goalkeeper's just been coming and taking it, or a defender's been clearing it away. So having somebody basically within the width of the posts to put it away is massive. And yeah, I've been very, very impressed with Cabangu so far. I know it's only been a couple of goals against Brecon and one against Kilmarnock, but he looks like a little player that could do quite well for us.
Absolutely. No, I do agree with you. You know, he stands out as a very target man striker. You know, when we talked about him, you know, it looks like he can hold the ball up quite well, you know, shrug off any players that come into contact with him. I mean, if you do look back at the first goal, to be honest, I thought that the goal shouldn't have stand because I thought that he did elbow. I can't even mind who it was. It might have been um, Mayo, I think it was, or something like that. But you see, he fucking elbows him and he goes down. So don't
It's
don't
a
shrug
contact
don't
sport.
don't shrug that off. I like it's a contact sport and there's also assault as well. But hey ho,
Nah, it's a contact
uh,
sport. Derek McInnes was crying about it after the game. Derek McInnes had a cry about it after. If you watch that first 45 minutes, and Kilmarnock gave as good as they got, if not more, the number of fouls that they were getting, and they were flying into challenges. So, yeah, Derek McInnes crying is always pleasant in an interview after a game.
the well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you because we could be going for hours about it, my man. But
Ultimately, we got
um,
the goal. It doesn't matter.
yeah, exactly. But I don't know about yourself, but when when we got into the second half, I was raging about the equaliser because not only did the team, or you know, the only two Hearts defenders that were in the box at that point, but most of the team was expecting it to be offside as soon as they got to the far right, and nobody, apart from the only two players that were in the box, nobody rushed back to try and stop that cross, and it was such a lazy goal to give away. Granted, I'm not going to take away the finish from Wales. Was that his name? Or I,
Bobby Wales. Yeah.
yeah, and he slotted it really well, but that goal shouldn't have happened. You know, like again, you know, I guess what you had the basic stuff to say, but play to the whistle, and just nobody was rushing back. And you know, again, I'm sure the critics get it as well. Like you know, these are the kind of goals we've been letting in left, right, and centre throughout the season. You know, I mean, I don't know what you thought about it, but I thought it was just absolutely lazy.
Yeah, I'll give you that. We kind of lost the ball, and it was Marley Watkins that played the cross in. It's funny, I was talking about Forrester and Nielsen on the right hand side, and the goal came from the left from Penrice's side, which was a bit disappointing. But yeah, I thought it was a good finish
Oh yeah,
from Bobby Wales. I thought he took it very well. I do think maybe Gordon could get down a bit quicker, but maybe that's asking a bit much. I don't know, but yeah, it was quite a close range finish as well. So I'll give him that. But yeah, we didn't. It was you're right. We almost sort of gave up, kind of defending it when the cross comes in, and you know me, I hate crosses coming in. I hate that. I think you should be able to block a cross, or you should be getting out to try and put more of a challenge in. And to be fair, Marley Watkins doesn't really have much of a challenge to put the cross into the box. And then Bobby Wales, he's not the biggest of guys, but he just gets in and controls it and puts it away. So yeah, it was an annoying goal to give away. And you're right. I think with Critchley suggesting, these are the sort of goals that we need to cut out from conceding, and he's absolutely spot on. It was an easy goal. We don't. This is the thing that has been kind of our issue all season. We don't make teams work hard enough to score against us. I think that's the point. Like, they don't have to work hard to get a goal. It's almost just like, yeah, just have it. The ball's in the box. Just have it. But yeah, I don't want to criticize Craig Gordon, but I do feel like he could have got down a bit quicker. But it was right in the corner. So again, I'm not gonna take too much away from him. But yeah, annoyingly, because the first half wasn't particularly great watching, to be honest. It was a bit of a scrappy game, as I say, Kilmarnock doing everything they can to kind of kill it and break it up a bit. But yeah, it's annoying when you concede a goal in general, but that was frustrating because you're looking at it going, right, we're 1-0, this is an important game. Let's use that 1-0 and go on and get a second and try and kill it. But we kind of let them back in with that goal.
Absolutely. And it wasn't too long as well for another home debutee, should I say, that in the first half also got a goal disallowed, which was incredibly tight. It was
Yeah.
the right decision in the end, but incredibly tight.
Yeah.
And we actually scored from a cross. Like, honestly, ridiculous. But yeah, no, it was nice to see James McCart get on the score sheet as well. It was a very good header as well. Good finish. It almost came out of nowhere because obviously, as I said, we don't usually score from from any cross that I've seen in the past wee bit. But it was nice to see him on the score sheet, and because when we first signed him and then going through the teams he had actually been in, i.e., the Rotherham and St Johnson. So I thought, it's just a bit of a meh signing, but he's shown in the last 2 or 3 games that he's, again, a very stable centre back, and I would assume that Critchley would want him to be a mainstay in that back four.
Yeah, definitely. I think Critchley might have said in his aftermatch interview, or maybe it was prior, I can't remember, but he was talking about the defenders and he said, when he first came into the club, he was playing Rolls and Halkett as a partnership and they kind of gelled well and connected together and looked good. So, with Rolls being sold and McCart coming in, it's a different partner for Halkett, but they seem to do quite well together. Obviously, Halkett went off against Kilmarnock, but what I like about McCart, and it's one of those things that like I spoke about at the start of this about in fact it was before we even started the podcast, just earlier on today we were talking about it, and Jamie McCart was obviously identified by the Jamestown analytics as a player that we can get, but he's not flashy, he's not an unknown quantity, and I think that's quite a nice thing.
Yeah,
Critchley knew about him from his town down south, and that speeded up the process and made it easier to get him in. So I like McCart, and I think, like I said about the need to have homegrown players, the need to have kind of Scottish players, or just people that know the league. McCart knows the league, and he was successful, obviously, at his time at St Johnstone. So I think there were some people that when we signed him were a bit like you say, a bit like, nah, who's this guy? He's not going to be anything special. But sometimes they don't have to be, and
yeah,
I think he just comes across as quite a dependable centre back. And I've said to you many a time about Kai Rolls when he was at Hearts, and also Halkett, to be fair. All of our defenders, really, if they could attack a cross as well as they defend them, they'd get a few goals. And, you kind of want your defenders to chip in with goals every now and again, and set pieces and corners are opportunities to do that. So it was nice to see him obviously get the one that was offside. He connected well with that. And then the goal that actually stood, yeah, I thought he did really well. He didn't really have a lot of challenge on him. Like there was not really a Kilmarnock player on him at that point, but he still has to put the ball in the net and he did it very well. So it's a promising start from McCart. I don't think he's been fantastic, but he's certainly dependable.
absolutely. I agree on that as well. Just before we go into the preferred goal as well, because you know I have to say it was a frustrating goal for very different reasons. It was great to see it go in to the back of the net. I just wish it wasn't. Was it Dirty Mikey Jorge that put it in the back of the net, because that then buys him a bit of time. But it was more just to talk about our current captain Lawrence Shankland as well, who started on the bench for the first time in quite a few weeks, and he brought him on for a bit at the end. You know, and it was a question that was raised when he's not been featuring throughout this last wee bit. Um, it's probably a bit of a loaded question, but do you feel as if we're a better team without Shankland, in the sense that, I mean, maybe better is the wrong word, but a bit more kind of free flowing? in that sense, because obviously, it kind of goes without saying that, you know, up until Critchley came in, everything was going through Shankland, with a case of, you know, was it like, if you give it to him, give him a chance and he'll score. Obviously, that's not been the case for this season, but would you be less downhearted when he does inevitably leave at the end of the season? That it'll be kind of a less, was it the kick in the gut to see that we can function and operate as a squad without Shankland?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. I think like obviously Shankland in the last 2 seasons has been phenomenal, scoring all the goals and you know some would say carrying us to a certain extent, which I'm not sure I totally subscribe to that. But a man scoring 20 plus goals 2 seasons in a row is going to have a massive impact on where you finish in the season.
Oh yeah,
But
like I'm not saying that
no,
he's
no,
been like terrible and like and
no,
I want him out of my club, but
no, no.
when
But
it
my
does
point,
happen,
yeah, oh no, definitely. But my point is more that like at that point, like if you'd asked me that 6 months ago, I'd be saying, yeah, no,
aye,
we're in trouble. The minute
mm.
that he leaves, we're in trouble. Like it's going to be dangerous. But yeah, I mean, obviously he had his injury and he's had a little rest now and he's been out for a little while. And there's some people that sort of say maybe that rest will do him good because he's not really had much of a rest over the last 12 months, really, because we haven't
Mm.
really been able to give him a rest. And then he went to the Euros, etc. There's definitely something with Shankland at the moment. I don't know what that something is. There's definitely something that's happened to him, or he's had his head turned, or whatever you want to say. But I like the fact that now he was on the bench for the Kilmarnock game. I feel like the fact that he was on the bench is a big thing. I think it would have been very, very easily for Critchley to kind of put him straight back in for the game against Kilmarnock because he was back fit, obviously. And I had a feeling that he might put him back in, but I'm glad that he didn't. Um, and yeah, like it it does make it slightly easier to see what Hearts will be like without him in it, if he does indeed leave at the end of the season, which is looking likely. It'll be a different Hearts, but I think it's going to be a different Hearts anyway.
Yeah,
That's guaranteed the way things are at the moment. But I do feel like we have seen positive things over the last few weeks, and I think it's just an element of the players that are being picked have the legs to do the jobs that Critchley wants them to do. Whereas Shankland has never really been a player with pace. He's never really been a player that will go and close down a defender. He's not that kind of guy. He needs legs around him, and you could see when he came on in the second half, and his role was to sit a little bit deeper and have players running off him. He had Musa in front of him. So if we can play to Shankland's strengths between now and the end of the season, but also the rest of the team's strengths as well, that's not a bad thing. Like I thought, as I say, I thought if Shanklin was going to start, I had a feeling it was going to be with Cabangu in front of him, like in that sort of 10 role with Cabangu ahead of him. And it's a really, really interesting thing. I don't know what I don't know how it's going to go. I think, like I say, I'm kind of resolved to Hearts being and looking completely different from next season onwards. Is this season a write off so far? I wouldn't say it is. I think we're
no,
starting to
absolutely not.
turn it around, but have we left it too late to turn it around? I don't know. But
No,
yeah, it's nice to answer your question in a roundabout way. It's nice to see us having different avenues to score goals, and I think George Grant is not a player that I want at Hearts next season, to be honest with you. But
thank
like
you.
some of the other players at Hearts at the moment, like some of the other players at Hearts at the moment, if he can put a shift in between now and the end of the season, I'll take that. And I think, George Grant did an interview after the game and he was asked about his future and he said there's not been any discussions as of yet. So that kind of makes me think maybe they're giving him an opportunity to say, right, go and earn a new contract if you want one. Otherwise, play for your next move, like we've seen with Hearts players do in the past. If George Grant has a brilliant last few months of the season, in the same way as Shankland, I'm still not going to miss them when they leave. I think we need a fresh start. We need fresh approaches. And I think as good as Shankland has been, we do need to start looking at what comes next because the reality is he's not going to be here next year. So we
Yep.
need to see what we have beyond that. And I think, Kabangu, as I say, looks and sounds like he's got that bit between his teeth to say, right, I want to do something here. and
Mhm.
I want to be important and I want to score goals. And I'm not sitting here saying I'd pick Cabangu over Shankland every day of the week because it's still very, very early. But I like what Cabangu's saying and I like the way he's putting himself around. Is he going to be the one that leads the line for us next season? I wouldn't be against it, honestly. I wouldn't be against it. But yeah, it is. Put it this way: there's light at the end of that tunnel. If Shanklin were to leave, I think is the best way I would put it.
That's the thing as well. And you said the fact that we played a 4-4-2 yesterday, sorry, on Saturday, which is something I've not seen for, again, a very long time. It would be interesting, even if it's just until the end of the season, to revert between, Shankland, Kabangu, and the Wilson as well. I mean, hell, I would be inclined to see what a front two of Shankland and the Kabangu would look like. Who
Yeah.
knows? It may be like the strike force of the season, or like would be absolutely pish. But
Well, I
um,
think just to sort of throw something in there that I meant to say, sorry, I think if you were to go Shankland and Kabangu, I think you could see parallels to like Shankland and Ginelli when they were together as a two. I
yeah,
think, that last 6 months, albeit it was Gino playing for a move elsewhere, but that last 6 months of that partnership was when Gino just absolutely caught fire, and it was because Shanklin gave him the freedom to do that. And I'm not saying that that could happen again with Kabangu, but I could see it because there are attributes to Kabangu's game that do remind me a little bit of Gino in that sense.
yeah. I mean, true as well. I mean, again, Shankland's not going to be trying to light the world on fire because he's not playing for the contract extension. But to just to touch on what you said there, if it's too late to turn the season around, absolutely not. You have to remember our season got turned upside down at the end of the Robbie Nielsen's tenure with about 6 games to actually go. And we managed to throw away an 11-point gap where we're sitting in January right now, and there's 10 points between us and Dundee United, you know? So I know that's quite a tall order task for to try and make it into, our third place spot. But at the same time, it's not in it's not a million miles away. Hibs have now gotten on a run now, which now puts them into the top six. And again, I'm not a massive fan of the kind of league table in the last 10 games, or whatever. But just to take that into account, since Critchley has came in, we're sitting was it third in that we crappy stat. So I honestly I don't think it's a million miles away. I think once we get into the top six, then we can start to evaluate what we can and can't do. Because obviously, like you've mentioned as well, it's not Critchy's team yet. I'm like you'll hate me for saying this, but I'm still not entirely convinced by Ed Critchley. But if he proves me wrong, please do absolutely. But if we get into the top six by let's just say next month, and we could potentially get into it this the weekend as well, then who knows. But again, as well, we don't have to dwell on it too much. But you know, with the second goal that the Kelly scored, again, was it unavoidable? I think so. Again, I don't think that you know, and this is not to single him out again, but I think Gordon he doesn't necessarily have to jump, because I know that he thinks, from the headed ball, I guess that your mind just thinks straight away that once he gets a head on it, it's only going to go like sort of straight at him, not down at the floor. Which in that respect, I thought he actually did quite well to get the ball in the back of the net. But at the same time, I don't think like yeah, it is a bit of tricky one because I don't want to signal him out, but you know, I think in this instance, I think for the first goal, I know you mentioned about could he have done the better, but I think certainly for the second goal, he could have done better.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree. I think he comes out to try and I don't know make himself big or whatever, but he just misjudges it. And to be fair, the scorer just heads it down the way. But again, it's one of those crosses coming in that I hate to see. Forrester gets overpowered at the back post, and yeah, it's a relatively simple goal. Like he just heads it down, but it kind of I'm not saying Forrester should be challenging him more, but I think Forrester needs to see that ball coming in and kind of assert himself as the defensive option. I think he just lets the Killy boy kind of jump on his back and put the ball away. So again, I'm not blaming Forrester for it, but I think Adam Forrester's been one of those guys that's had quite a lot of flack recently for reasons I don't quite understand from certain sections of the fan base. But I do agree with you that Gordon could and maybe should have done better. I think there's arguments that for both goals he could and should have done better, but it's Craig Gordon, so I feel harsh criticizing a guy
It
of
feels
his
wrong, right? Yeah.
stature. It really does. I don't like it. But yeah, it kind of set the game up to be a little bit nervy at the end, which at 3-1, you're looking at it going, right, ride this out, win this comfortably. You know, Kilmarnock are a decent side. They're a bit of a bogey team for us at the moment. So to get a win against them was massive. But the goal was frustrating. But the fact is, as well, we had two big chances after they scored to
Mm.
really put the game away. You know, Musa hits the post and then he hits one over I think he hit it straight at the keeper. The other one
Yeah,
he got when Shanklin played him in. So we had chances to win it a lot more comfortably than we did, but it wouldn't be Hearts if we did that.
absolutely. But then, we talked about it the other week there. This, I'm only saying for myself that this adds to my case, and I think this might be the first time we're saying it this season. I think there's a player there. Musa, there's a player there, man. I'm telling you now. I'm telling you now, for all as much as, we talked about, him not necessarily hitting the ground the running just now, the more he plays and the more that Critchley uses him as an option, you know, you start to see, you know, how he can be used and you utilize as a striker. I honestly, hand on heart, I think he is a player that I would like to hang on to when we get into next season as well. I don't know if you agree or not, but if you're going to take into account Jamestown as well, and if it would they deem the Musa as a player that would fit the category and a role in the squad, I would absolutely keep him.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I like Musa, but I think I don't really know what he is at the moment, and I think we have quite a lot of players like that. I think, well, we have had quite a lot of players like that. I like him as a striker. I like him
Oh
through the
no,
middle.
we
He does
have
have.
players like that right now. Don't you worry, sir. We have players like that right now.
I, I think he's definitely a player. There's definitely something about him, but to me, he fits in that mold of kind of like what we spoke about Oyegoki before, and we'll probably touch on him more when we speak about transfers. But Musa is a player that came in from Sevilla Atletico for a free in the summer. So
Mm.
whatever we move him on for, eventually, be that in the summer or beyond, we're going to make a profit on him, as we are
Mm.
looking likely to do with Oyegoki. So he does seem to be that sort of Jamestown type of signing where you bring him in, you develop him a little bit, and then you maybe flip him for money. But I do like Musa. I think there's elements of his game that I'm fond of, and there's elements of his game that I think can improve. And I think the biggest thing that I like about him is his work rate and his energy. Like you can see him when he goes up and down that right hand side that he puts a shift in. He does put a shift in. He's quite defensively aware. He seems to be quite alert in that, and he gets back and helps out his fullback quite well. But You need more than that. You need more than that, especially if
How
you're going
much
to be a
does he
forward.
need? How much does he need,
But
Alan?
the thing is, if you're asking me right now, and I think it's clear that obviously the right hand side of our midfield is an area that they're looking to improve, and obviously Critchley's brought in Sander Khartoum as well, who predominantly plays as a right-sided midfielder. He could be the one that they give the game time to more regularly. But if you're looking for a right-sided midfielder or a right-sided forward, I'd pick Musa ahead of Vargas right now any day of the week. And that's
Fair.
more of a praise of Musa than it is of a criticism of Vargas. But I do think Vargas is a player that needs a move, or he needs to buck up his ideas and realize what he's got. But yeah, I like Musa, and I will say it. There is a player in there. I will say it. I'll put that out there.
Very
Can't
well
wait for
done.
him to get sold in the summer for millions now.
Of course, there we go. and luckily as well, we managed to see out the game and all 3 points on the board, which currently sits us ninth, which is amazing, right? Sits us ninth in the current league table with 27 points. We'll move a wee bit on to the transfer subject. There's not been a lot happening, but um, as you rightly so mentioned there, and as we mentioned last week as well, obviously that's Stein was at the Wilder in now as a choice for the back line, and then we a couple of days ago confirmed the signing of Xander Khartoum, which, as you said, is a right-sided was it mid fielder, quite creative in that sense as well. When he did his interview with Hearts TV, um, I guess we'll only know what he's actually got until he's on at the pitch as well. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Like I looked up a little bit about him when we've signed him and when we confirmed it. And there's lots of different things being said about him, but there was some fans of his previous club, Bran, that were saying, what you're getting is a hard-working midfielder who does a little bit of everything relatively well, isn't afraid to have a shot, which is always nice. They also mentioned that 99% of the time he gets his shots on target, which is another big bonus as well. I think what I like about him, I think the age profile is not what I thought we would be going for. I think he, at 29 years old, seems to be, when you're talking about Jamestown and their sort of brackets of players that they go for, you've either got players that are for the future, players that are for the now, or players that are for the sort of medium to long term. And I think Sander Carton fits in the sort of players for now, but equally the players for the medium to long term. I think he's a player that at 29 years old could be upgraded upon in the summer, perhaps, but equally he seems versatile. So he seems like a player that if we were to go out and get a pacey right winger, which is something that I am praying for, you could put Khartoum in the middle, you could play him somewhere else. So that gives me a lot of confidence. And I think for a player, he comes across as an attacking midfielder, like you say, which is something that again we've been crying out for a very, very, very long time. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what he brings. I think Steinwender is somebody that again comes with a lot of promise and a lot of kind of intrigue about how he's going to do. He does have all the attributes to do well in Scottish football. They apparently identified him months ago as a player that they could get and would like to get. So that'll be interesting. He's 6'4", I think 6'3", 6'4", but seems very quick as well. So that could be massive, particularly in Scottish football. It'll be interesting to see what they bring. And I think you mentioned it before that it's not really Critchley's team yet. I think with these players coming in, we can see the sort that he's wanting to get in, and we can see the identity of what he's trying to do. I think between now and the end of the season, it's a case of, and he said it himself, he's not looking at the league table. He's more just focusing on game at a time and see where we end up. And that's not such a bad thing, especially when the league is as tight as it is, because, we've been in a good run of results recently, but we've only moved up from 11th to ninth. So, that there's elements of, you can only take care of your own business, and that's what's important, because obviously teams round about you will pick up points against each other anyway. But if you can do your job, then that takes care of itself. And I think the new players that are being brought in, they do seem to be kind of medium to short to medium term options, I would suggest, aside from Steinbender, who I think has been signed with that idea of bring him in, have him for a few years, and maybe flip him for big money because he does seem to have something about him. But again, we'll wait and see when they pull on the maroon and get playing. I think we'll be able to judge them obviously then. But at the moment, it's exciting. I would say the signings that have been made, to me, there has been significant outlay. They're all six-figure fees. It's not as if we're throwing pennies at them. Like, we are spending money. Okay, we're not paying £1 million for one player, but we're spending money, and that shows the faith that the board have not only in Critchley but also in that analytics system to go so full in on it and be like, right, we are all in on this. We are going to invest in this, and that'll show hopefully with the quality of the players that we're bringing in.
Well, I tell you what, he can flip me over any day of the bloody week, Steinbender. Honestly, he could potentially be my new Andy Halliday. Sadison, the boy's got game. The boy's got hips,
Well,
man.
he's
Honestly,
we'll see how he goes. We'll see how he
absolutely,
goes.
absolutely. In terms of the going subject as well, which I was astonished at when you sent me this a few days ago. So our right back and centre back as well, Oyugoki. I was unaware, genuinely unaware that we got him for a free. In terms of what I think of him and how he's done, I think he's been relatively stable. Again, I don't think I don't think he's been absolutely outstanding, in the sense of, oh my God, we have a amazing player here. But he's been good. And then when you sent me the link to this article that a Serie A team was interested in him, and then the media going through it like blah blah blah. Yeah, the cookie wanted how much? 800K has been carried. Fucking drive him to the airport now. Absolutely. Like, like that's the kind of like, it's not a go at him because I think he's done all right. It's the fact that this has almost came out of nowhere. And the fact that, the only reason that I would be more for it is that I think there's lots of other players there that could be like for like or slightly better as well. Like, I think, to get that kind of investment back for a free at the start of it, like to me, that's an absolute no brainer. A no brainer.
Oh, completely, completely. I think, I've spoken a bit about the sort of Jamestown situations and stuff, and like the kind of the process of what they want to do and how they want to do it. And I think Oyugoki is the perfect example of a player that you bring in for a short period of time and then you flip him, and that tends to be what we've seen, and what we will see. The fee surprised me as well, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's 22 years old. I just looked it up there, 22, 23. He's been with us for 7 months. And it's funny because he's clearly got something about him.
Yeah,
But it's funny because obviously it feels very strange to say that we're going to make a high six-figure profit
yeah,
on a player and we're not going to miss him, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
I don't think we will miss him because he wasn't an automatic starter every week anyway. And I
Mm.
think that for me is kind of the biggest positive. I think with Taylor coming back, and we'll
Yeah,
see how he is when he comes back into that right back position, and Forrester fighting with him for it. It's almost like there's not really a place for Oyugoki, which again feels weird to say when we're about to make a high six-figure profit. But
yeah.
I do like the player, but I don't feel connected to him in as much as I'm connected with other players that we have. If that kind of sums it up, I think he's not been here long enough for me to really go, yeah, we're going to miss him when he's not here. I'm not going to deny he's got talent. I do think he has talent, and I think he'll do well wherever he goes. But yeah, it just seems very, very strange to kind of, as I say, sit here and speak about a player that we're about to make upwards of £800,000 on. when he's not really given his best for Hearts, if that makes
Sure.
sense. Normally, players come in and do really well and then get sold, and you go, okay, yeah, you know what, you've earned that move.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't feel like it's been earned, but at the same time, they obviously see something in him and they think, yeah, do you know what, we'll get him. It was there was rumours that it was Lecce in the Serie A, but there's also apparently Hellas Verona, and apparently the club that have agreed a fee, as per the Evening News latest article that they put out. So they obviously see something in him that they want to get him. But yeah, it's very, very strange. Like I don't feel connected to him. So I just feel like he's just kind
Yeah,
of passed through. If he does end up leaving, you're like, well, we didn't see the best of you, so I'm not overly worried about you leaving. If that makes
but
sense.
thank you very much, though. Thank you
Oh,
very much.
too right, too right. But that's the Jamestown system in
Mm,
effect. Effectively, bring them in for free, have them for a little bit, and then watch them go and make money. So
mm.
fair play, fair play.
Well, in that same sense, Alan, if this does go through and we still have a few days left before I mean, I say at a few days a week before the window actually closes, could you expect one or two more? Was it at the places to come in, or would you maybe think that the club would be a bit more kind of the focus on trying to get the people out?
Yeah, I think outs are likely. I think Critchley said, I think it was last week, he spoke about how the squad's quite large and he would expect it to be like a busy week for us. Obviously, we've seen Tate go out on loan to Livingston, which I think is a very good move for him.
Mm,
On the short term, I think that's a good move. Oyugoki obviously looking like he's leaving. There's been talk about Mackay and Oda, two players that can't seem to get in for whatever reason, so they might leave. Again, George Grant has interest from down south apparently, but like I spoke about earlier, I wouldn't be against him staying to the end of the season and then going
mm,
because I don't see us getting a lot of money for him anyway. But you know, if there's an offer on the table that suits the club's value of him, then I'm sure they would entertain it. I think Critchley has spoken about certain players he doesn't want to lose, but every player does have a price, is what the words were that he used. So there is that element of who could go. There's been talk about Boateng potentially as well, another one that could be out due to the midfielders we're bringing in, and obviously Callum Neuenhoff not far away from coming back, so that's increased competition in there. It'll be very, very interesting to see what the team looks like at the end of the window. Critchley said it at the start that they're hopeful it would look different at the end of the window as it has done at the start. And I think the new players coming in have added something, although obviously we haven't seen Steinbelder and Khartoum as yet. Those that we've seen, i.e., McCart and Kabangu, have both added something. So,
mm.
you're looking at that and going, okay, they've had a positive impact. The two that haven't played yet, let's see what they've got. But I would expect there to be outs because we do have quite a large squad and we are running quite heavy. So there could well be some more out. Even by the time this episode goes live, we could
Yeah,
have maybe sold one or two more. Who knows?
possibly, Alan, possibly. Well, I think that's all we have to say on the transfer side of things. But we didn't mention it in our notes, but I'm going to give it a light nod before we quickly talk about Dundee. With it was highlighted by a few fans, both in the cartoon announcement, the video, and also um, a video that a fan took from the plaza on one of the plasma screens that it's very highly likely that we will have a new kit um, sponsored next season, and I am buzzing. I am buzzing, and it looks likely to be that we are going back to Hummel, which I think will be brilliant. Only just basis on the fact that, like, with you and me, Ed, what was it, Ed, being both shirt enthusiasts, shall we say, their kits of late have been quality. Like, just in terms of the designs, and honestly, I'm so over Umbro. I really am over Umbro. It's the fact that, you know, obviously this would be a whole other topic, but the one thing that kind of, I wouldn't say upset me, but I was a bit annoyed about in terms of like when we brought out the at the 150th anniversary of the kit last year. The like it was the white one. It looked amazing, but the quality just felt like just meh. So much that you know you could see my wee the raisins through it, which is no nice to see. Nobody wants to see that, but just with Hummel being touted as the next kit my manufacturer, honestly, I am buzzing for it, man, buzzing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's quite the way they've done it. It's been quite fun as well with the like you say the cartoon announcement when he slaps the QR code on the wall, and um apparently there was like little like the chevrons were on the ground all across the stadium, and there was QR codes and stuff that took you to like a page. I think it was like a countdown or something, and it was like 18 days to go or something. So we'll obviously see in a couple of weeks or just over a couple of weeks what the new tops will look like. I like Hummel. I knew you'd
Yeah.
like Hummel, which is why I didn't mention anything about it behind the
No.
scenes. I
No.
didn't mention anything
I
about
never.
it. Oh, we've had a
Sorry
pitch
about that.
invader.
I'm absolutely fucking buzzing as well. Fuck oh, get your arse out of it. Fuck up, bro. Fuck up, bro. Fuck it. Sorry about that, man.
No, you're all right. You're all right. I was enjoying me interruption
Don't
there,
say
so I could gather my thoughts.
that.
Enjoying the break. let me put that right. But no, I knew that you'd be buzzing about Hummel, which is why, like I say, we didn't speak about it until we came on here.
Aye.
I like the Hummel kits. I thought they were very classy and very almost simple. Simple
Yeah.
but classy, I think is the way I would put it. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like. But as I always say to people about Hearts kits, and as you said, you and I are fans of football tops. When it comes to Hearts, the players could play in a bin bag. I don't really care as long as they're good enough to play for it, and as long as they do enough while they're wearing it.
Fair
But yeah,
dues.
it'll be nice to see what Hummel come up with. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Definitely, indeed, definitely. And we can wrap things off with a tiny preview with our away game to Dens Park at the weekend. Obviously, a horrible place to actually go. I've always hated that stadium. I think in the sense of I'm just a bit OCD when it comes to stadiums and in terms of their architecture. I don't know who the fuck made that, but in back to the actual game itself, Alan. Again, like we say every single week, but massive game. We're sitting on 27 points each. It's an opportunity to put a tiny gap between us and Dundee as well. All the more reason to win with the Rangers at the following week. So, how are you feeling about it? Do you feel relatively confident that we can go there and to get a result?
I do. I do. I think it's a big game, like you say. I think Dundee are on the same number of points as us, as you mentioned. So it's an opportunity for us to leapfrog somebody else to climb higher up the table. But earlier in the season when we played them at Tynecastle, we beat them 2-0 with a double from Shankland. But back in August, we lost 3-1 away from home. So there's definitely but obviously their man of the match on that day, I've just looked it up, is Luke McCowan, who's no longer there, of course. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we do. It'll be interesting from a team selection point of view because obviously the new players will be in and will have had a week's worth of training by that point. So it'll be interesting to see what Critchley does in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I am, as again, I say this with every time we do a preview, I'm as confident as I'm going to allow myself to be. We've been in good form. We're still unbeaten in 2025, which is a big plus. We've got through January without losing a game, which is another big. Well, we're getting through January
Getting.
without losing a game. Obviously, the Dundee fixtures on the 1st of February, so we've made it through
Right, okay,
January
fair. Yeah,
without
fair.
losing a game. So yeah, it'll be a tough one, and then obviously we've got St Mirren on the Monday, so we play Dundee on the Saturday, and then St Mirren on the Monday in the cup. So I think squad selection will be interesting for both those games. But yeah, I would back us to go there and get a result, whatever that result may be. I don't know, but if you were to press me for it, I'm going to say we're going to win. But if it was a scrappy draw, I maybe wouldn't be against that. But I think it's a big opportunity for us to get our 3 points on the board and try and get above them.
That's the spirit, Alan. And hopefully, all of you watching or listening is all shared the same sentiment. We would love to hear um, on all things that we've talked about as well. Do you expect anybody to leave the squad until the January transfer window closes? What your thoughts about the new the potential kit manufacturer might be, and do you think we'll get a result when we go to Dens Park at the weekend? So as always, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. As always, it is greatly appreciated. Again, just to go over it, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please go ahead and check that out. Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, you name it, we are all on there. So please check those out. So until next time, from myself, me and Alan, and all the fans traveling to Dundee at the weekend, we do hope you have a good one, and we will see you in the next one. You all take care. Bye for now.